Hi, and welcome to 30-Minute Fitness with Amy Lewis. I'm Amy Lewis with Fusion Fitness in Killington, Vermont, and I am thrilled to be in the PEG TV kitchen today. This is one of my absolute favorite places to be. I love the kitchen studio, and today I'm going to make for you a chicken dish, and we were trying to think about what should we call it. It's basically a sesame spinach chicken dish with gluten-free pasta. So it's gluten-free, it's dairy-free. If you cannot do sesame, you can swap that out, and we'll get to that when we get to that. I also have a dark chocolate almond bark today that we're going to make if we have time. So I'm going to jump right in so that we can get as much done as possible. So I've already roasted the chicken, and that's in the oven, and I'm gonna pull that out. So if you're roasting a whole chicken, my chicken was about 5.3 pounds, and it took not quite 2 hours to roast in my oven. You'll wanna look that up for yourself. Every oven is different. You don't need to use a roast chicken. You can certainly grill chicken cutlets or boneless, skinless thighs or whatever you wanna do to cut it up and put it into this dish. You're also going to need a bag of gluten-free pasta. You're gonna have to play around with different types of gluten-free pasta to see what you like. I found a brand that I really like. You're gonna have to see what you like. You're gonna wanna throw, the great thing about gluten-free pasta is I've already boiled the water, and I'm just gonna dump the pasta in there, and I'm actually gonna turn it off. So with gluten-free pasta, with this type anyway, you dump it in, stir it around, cover it up, and then leave it for about 16 minutes, 12 to 16 minutes. So I'm gonna check that again in about 12 minutes, and it may or may not be ready for us, and I'm gonna pull that off of the, it would help if I use pot holders. I'm gonna pull that off of the heat. So really do seriously be mindful of what you're using, especially when you're in someone else's kitchen. My pots at home, they're not hot here, so make sure you don't hurt yourself. The other things that you're gonna need for this dish are sesame oil, and again, you could use avocado oil, you could use olive oil, coconut oil. I like the sesame flavor, and we're gonna use this to sort of make a dressing for the chicken, the pasta, and then I like to buy a big box of spinach because it's already made, right? It's already washed. I don't have to pull it off of, I don't have to take the time to prep it. It's all prepped for me. So if you're in a rush, it's really at this point not that much more expensive to go ahead and get a box of organic greens. If organic's not in your budget, don't say I'm not making this dish. Get what works for your budget and get your greens in. So I'm gonna actually move this back here. We're gonna do the dressing, which is gonna be the sesame oil, and I'm just gonna toast some sesame seeds, and then we're gonna end up I'm mixing in some balsamic vinegar, and we'll mix that all with our chicken and our spinach. So I'm putting that back here because, and it's something you can think about, if you're doing multiple dishes at home, I like to save energy, right? So since that one was already heated up, I may as well use that. It'll take less time to heat. And especially if you have an electric stove. This is a gas stove, so it's gonna be off and on. But I have an electric at home, as you can maybe guess. So we're just gonna heat that pan up. We'll heat up some of the sesame oil, and then I'm just gonna toast some sesame seeds. You can always go organic wherever you can, wherever it fits into your budget, but just get those healthy ingredients. Don't worry about whether or not it's organic, if, again, that's not in your budget. So we'll let that heat up. The other thing we're doing today, and we're gonna kind of do this all at once, is our chocolate almond bark. So something you're gonna need before you start with that chocolate almond bark is you're gonna need a baking pan, or you'll see later, you really can use anything. I like to use something flat to make it thinner so I can have just a little bit at a time. The other pan that you'll see later is a little bit thicker. You're then gonna wanna take wax paper and lay that wax paper on the pan. This is a non-stick pan, so it'd probably be fine, but I don't wanna fight with it later when it's frozen because it will go into the freezer. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna turn on another burner here, and we'll start to melt the chocolate. Now, I'm cheating, I'm not doing it, I didn't go to cooking school, so you'll see what I mean, perhaps. I am not using a double boiler here. Some folks really say you've absolutely got to use a double boiler, which simply means I'd have another pan underneath this with water, and that water would be boiling so the heat is not directly on the pan. If you tend to burn things, you're going to want to use the double boiler. I am not going to use it today. And all we need for this recipe is super simple. We are going to put in 10 ounces of chocolate chips. These are dark chocolate chips. They're dairy-free, they're gluten-free. And then we're doing half of 3.5 ounces. So if you can do the math there, 1.5, 1 3/4, close to it, of green and blacks, and it doesn't have to be green and blacks, it can be any dark chocolate. This is 85% cacao. So you want something higher than 72% ideally. And I'm gonna stick that right in with the chocolate chips, and it's gonna go ahead and start to melt. Now once you get that in there, you wanna make sure that you keep stirring. Right, so I'm gonna start the stirring and I'm gonna keep coming back to it. I have it on super low heat here. That way, because I'm doing more than one thing, if for a moment it kind of slips my mind, I'm not gonna burn the chocolate. Okay, and then you might want something nearby that you can just lay your utensils on. So let's get a little bit of the oil in this pan's heated at this point. Now, if you've watched my show before, you know I am not a big measurer, so I'm sort of not coating the whole bottom of the pan, but then I'm gonna make sure that it goes all over that pan so I can heat that oil. And you wanna watch when you're heating oil, you don't want it to start splattering all over the place, so I have it on super, super, super low. And then I'm just gonna put some sesame seeds in. Now, I can measure for you. We'll do 1/4 cup to start. And this is a great way to just toast some sesame seeds. So I'm gonna throw them in there. As the oil heats up, we'll stir it around and we'll toast them. Super duper easy to toast up the seeds. So let's grab something else. And so you probably don't wanna stir your seeds with the same utensil as you're stirring your chocolate. And I'm not saying you can't, right? So if you're like, wow, chocolate, chicken, spinach, that sounds really good, then go ahead and do what you will. And then don't forget to go back and stir that chocolate. And you'll notice that the bar is gonna take a little bit longer to melt than the chips. And that's just if I had broken that bar up, it would have melted faster, but it's no big deal. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and pull that chicken out of the oven. So while this is going, we can start tearing that chicken apart and throwing it. Let's grab a plate, we'll throw it onto a plate here. Let's move some of these things. So again, remember you want your pot holders. I use dish towels a lot. You're probably better off using pot holders just so you don't slip. And we're gonna pull that chicken right out of the oven. All right. Now depending on your countertops, you'll know whether or not you can put that right onto your countertop or not. I am gonna go ahead and find my pot holders here. And I'm gonna go ahead and put that right on top of the towel. So you don't wanna wreck your counter because you're putting something hot on it. So there we go. And then we'll uncover, and you see we have this beautiful chicken. Now, the way I roasted the chicken, I did it really simply, and I will admit my husband really helps me with this stuff because I do eat meat, but I always say, can you do the touching? So, he got that chicken onto the roaster, pulled all the stuff out. Make sure if you're buying a whole chicken or turkey that you reach in there because you're gonna have the neck and the giblets in there, and you wanna make sure that you don't cook that in there, especially a lot of times in the turkey, it'll come in a package and you don't wanna heat that up. So we just added some herbs and spices, some oregano, some basil, some salt and pepper. And that was what we did for that. And then I'm just gonna cut some of that chicken onto the plate. Right, so you can go ahead and I actually brought in a fillet knife today to make it super easy for myself. Now you can go ahead and do what I'm doing. I'm just sort of pulling it out of there and seeing where can I get it off of that bone. And the skin is sort of coming off, so that's awesome. The skin has more fat. That does not mean you can't eat it. So don't think, oh, healthy eating, I can never have that. What I encourage people to do is to eat slowly. So even if you're going out for a big ice cream sundae, enjoy it and eat it slowly, and you'll find that you'll eat a little bit less. So same thing with your healthy meals. Sometimes we gobble, 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 right? Because, oh, it's healthy and I can eat as much as I want. So I'm just gonna pull that out of there. And then we're gonna wanna cut this into pieces. But remember, we've got a few things on the stove. So we're gonna go back over and just make sure nothing's burning over here. All right, great. So when you keep it real low, you can really multitask because you're not gonna be afraid you're gonna burn anything. All right. And the slower you do the chocolate and the lower heat, it really removes the need for that double boiler. So we'll get that going right here. And the coconut, oh, I'm sorry, we'll get to that later. The sesame seeds, we're just looking for them to toast and get a little bit browned. And you'll see we're gonna toast up some coconut in a bit too. And once you've stirred those again, you can go back to cutting up your chicken, and keep in mind that you're gonna wanna check that pasta. So if you're really fancy and you wanna go ahead and shred your chicken, you can absolutely do that. I'm just going ahead and I'm gonna cut it into chunks. This is super easy for me to do. So I always tell people go path of least resistance. Don't try to make it difficult. If you don't know how to shred it and you're in a rush, just chop it right up there. Now again, when you're looking at your meats, your poultry, you want to buy the best quality that you can buy. So if you can buy something natural, no hormones, no antibiotics, there's so much available at all different levels. So look for your budget. So look for what's the best quality that you can fit into your budget, and that's going to be awesome for your health. And you'll be investing in your health long term. So when we make choices to spend a little more on food or a little more on a probiotic drink or a supplement, I always think of it that I'm spending the money now instead of having to pay for being ill later. So when you start thinking about that, think about some of the things that you do in your life, right? If you like to go out and have a drink, that's fine. Think about how much that costs and how much you're willing to invest there, and then you can kind of take it back and think about that as you're cooking your healthy meals. So now we've got our chicken cut up. Our chocolate is just about melted, so I'm going to remove that from the heat because you don't want it to go too far and it can burn. Just make sure you turn off when you're done. And then we're going to add a couple things to this. We're going to add in some almonds. So again, if almonds aren't your thing, you can do pistachios, walnuts. If you are allergic to nuts, leave the nuts out. This is really going to be fantastic. So let's add in our we're doing some almonds, slivered almonds, and we're just gonna do a 1/4 cup of these. And then we're gonna also add in some almond extract. So it'll give it that little bit of almondy flavor. So I'm just gonna do a 1/4 cup. Now I'm gonna eye it out. As I mix this in, if it doesn't look like there's enough almonds, I'm gonna add another 1/4 cup. And that's exactly what I'm gonna do. Because if you like almonds, there's just not many in there. There you go. So you can get creative with this. You could throw coconut right in there. You can throw pepitas in there, whatever works for you, whatever you like. So this is going to be a healthier treat, but remember, even when we do gluten-free and sugar-free and all that good stuff, there's still calories in there, and you want to look at what's in your food. So this is going to be a healthy treat. It still is fat, so you don't want to sit down and eat all of the almond bark at once. Then it'll be gone anyway, right? All right, so I'm just gonna eye this out again, but you wanna think about maybe a 1/4 teaspoon of almond extract. And then if that's not enough to your taste, you're gonna add more in. All right, so let's mix that up. And then we'll check on our sesame seeds. And we'll check on our pasta. And everything's gonna sort of come together at the same time. All right, those are taking a little bit longer. So we'll leave that. And now I'm going to go back to my pan, right? We already got that ready. Now this is going to end up going into the freezer. So I'm going to keep it off of the stovetop. And I'm going to take that pan. Now this isn't going to fill the whole pan, but I am going to go ahead and take my pan and I'm going to put that chocolate right on. And it's just, if you wanted to add sea salt, some people like sea salt with their dark chocolate. So I'm going to go ahead, scrape that all out. So chocolate is one of my favorites. If you know me, you know this is my biggest thing that I end up eating too much of. You always have that one thing. I love it. So I have to really portion it out for myself. So this you can make really thin and just spread all over that pan and thin it out. You've got the wax paper, so once it is out of the freezer, once it's frozen, you're gonna be able to just take it out and break it up into pieces, and I'll show you that in just a little bit. All right, so I'm gonna make that as thin as I can. You'll see the other one that's already finished is going to be thicker because I used a loaf pan for that. So again, you have some choices. You can make thick almond bark, or you can make it a little bit thinner like this one is gonna be. All right, and then I recommend you get that pan right into soaking right away so that you don't have to deal with that later. All right, so we'll fill that up, and while we're doing that, we will check on this pasta. All right, so when you look at the pasta, it really depends on your own tastes again. If you like it al dente, you like it a little bit softer. So that, again, you want to empty it into the colander. It's super steamy and hot, so always pour away from you. And I got to stop for a sec just so I don't get splashed. Alrighty. And then with pasta, whether it's gluten-free or you're not gluten-free, a good thing to do to get it to stop cooking is to put cold water on it. And since this is going to be a salad, it doesn't really matter if it's cold, right? When you first make it, it might be warm, and if you enjoy that, that's awesome. But then you're probably going to have leftover, and you're going to want to put that in the fridge, and you'll be eating it cold anyway. That just stops the pasta from cooking, so that you don't end up with super mushy, soft pasta. All right, perfect. And now the sesame seeds, if you can see, they're starting to brown up. And then we're going to end up taking those off of the stove top. Let's see what we're going to put those in. See if we can grab a dish here. How about a mug? All right, so we're going to dump these right in here. And again, that's the sesame oil with the sesame seeds, and we're going to end up throwing them in to our salad. Now the other thing I'm going to add to this is just a little bit of balsamic vinegar. And again, if you prefer apple cider vinegar or another type of vinegar, rice wine vinegar, you can certainly go for that. All right, and let's get that off. Now the last thing we need to toast here is going to be our coconut. So let's just get the sesame out of there real quick. And again, I'm saving some time because the pan is hot. So if you do this at home, you've got to make sure you're not touching the hot pan. Okay, let's see. All right. And now for the coconut, that's going to be for the chocolate. Now when you add your coconut in, you're not going to add any oil. So you want to make sure that you're really watching what you're doing here. So I'm just going to, again, use a 1/4 cup. Maybe I'll do a little more, 1/2 cup. I'm going to turn that burner back on. If you are working off an electric burner, you're not going to have a problem, right? It'll still be warm, so you might not even have to turn it back on. Right, let's grab our chocolate mixer. So when you are doing this at home, you can sort of do the dishes as you go, right? I'm not going to spend a lot of time because you're more interested in seeing what we're doing here. But that's something I try to do as we go so that you don't end up with a big pile of dishes at the end of your meal. So this is just going to toast up. Again, you want to take it slow so that you can brown it without burning it. So again, I have it on pretty low. And then while that's getting ready to go, let's start putting together our pasta salad. Let's see, we'll get this. Now I can take more of this chicken certainly, and I will. But again, I want to put this together for you. So we've got a nice big dish here. And we're going to be able to add all of our ingredients. So I'm going to start with some of the pasta. And we still have to add in that balsamic vinegar with the sesame seeds. And I'm going to put some of that pasta in. Now, what I like to do is use the whole bag. And then I'll put part of the pasta in here and the rest of the pasta into a container in my refrigerator, because what's going to happen is my whole family loves this and we can't get enough of it. So after we are finished, if we have some pasta left over, we'll just go ahead and grill up some chicken and make our own little dressing with the sesame seeds, and it's really, really great. You're going to see how super simple this is with a spinach box. It's already been washed, it's triple washed. You can certainly wash it again if you feel like you want to. And I like to put a ton of spinach in. So I'm going to put in a few big handfuls because truly I like to have more spinach than pasta in my dish. And then I'm just going to dump the chicken in. And again, if you want to make it prettier and shredded, you can do that, or cut it into smaller pieces. You can certainly go ahead and do that. All right, and then you're just going to toss it. So let's start just getting the pasta, the chicken, and tons of greens. And again, you can pick, do you want more pasta in there? The nice thing about this dish is you've got everything in it. You've got your protein, your chicken. You've got your fats, the oils, and there's certainly fat in the chicken as well, even though it is a lean protein. And you've got your veggies, the spinach, and then you've got that smart carbohydrate, the rice pasta. So I used rice pasta today. You can use any type of pasta you like, and if you want to keep it gluten-free, you're going to look for a gluten-free pasta. So let's just add a little bit of balsamic into our mug here. Woo. And again, you have to see what you like. I am just dumping a little bit in. You can hear it's still hot in there. It is toasting up. And we'll mix that up a little bit. And then this is going to go right into the dish, and we're going to mix it around. And then you're going to have this lovely sesame chicken spinach pasta dish, and it's gluten and dairy free. How cool is that? Now don't think, if you don't have a sensitivity to gluten and dairy, you don't have to run out and buy gluten-free pasta, but really pay attention to how your body feels. A lot of us have sensitivities and we don't realize it because they're not so severe, but they kind of make us feel yucky and we're not sure about it. So you might try a different type of pasta or staying away from the gluten and dairy for some time and then adding it back in and see how you feel. I know I can't do gluten or dairy, so this is awesome. Like, I'm always excited. And this recipe originally came from a good friend of mine, Karen DeLory, and I'm always excited when we're at potlucks together because she often will make this or something else that's gluten and dairy free. And as you can imagine, it's tough when you're going out sometimes and you want to know at a potluck, is there going to be something that I can eat? All right. So there is our chicken dish, and we can go ahead and put some of that right on our pasta dish for you. And we'll plate that right up. All right. And it's still nice and warm. You might have to dig in there for a little more chicken, but you can see there's so much more spinach. It's not really a pasta dish per se. And then we got to come back over. Oh, we were going chocolate. Where's our chocolate? Here it is. And we're just going to mix that up so you can see the coconut is browning. And we're going to hopefully get that onto the chocolate before that almond bark hardens. But you just want to mix it up, get it nice and browned, get it off the heat. And then you're going to sprinkle that right over. So if you wait a few minutes and it's not so hot, you can use your fingers and just sprinkle it over. I'm going to do it this way because the pan's hot and the coconut is hot. And again, if you don't like coconut, guess what? You don't have to use it. You could sprinkle this with crushed almonds or pecans or nothing. You could leave it blank, leave it plain. I happen to like coconut and chocolate. So it's been really awesome finding gluten-free, dairy-free, sugar-free recipes that I feel great about eating and feeding my family, and also sharing with other people. Just please remember to eat it slowly, because I know myself I could eat the whole thing in one sitting. So eat it slowly and notice how you feel, and when you're full, save the rest for another time. All right, now once you've got that in there, make sure you put your pan on a burner that's not hot, and you're gonna wanna stick that right into your freezer. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and get this into the freezer. And you'll see what I meant from before, where I've already made one, and I'll grab this bowl here. Now this I had used a loaf pan. I didn't have a long pan ready to go. So, but the wax paper, you can pull this right out, and then you can just peel it off, and you either have this big bar of chocolate, yum. This would not last with me around. If it were like this, believe it or not, I'd keep going back in the freezer and grabbing more. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna break it, ideally, into smaller pieces. But you can see that this is thicker than the other, so we might need to get a knife. But you can break that up. Ooh, getting coconut everywhere. And some of these are big, some of them are small, but you can sort of get the idea. All right, so we'll leave the rest of that to cut up. And there you have it. You have a lovely sesame chicken, spinach, gluten-free pasta dish, and you've got some almond bark for dessert, and it's all healthy for you. So thank you so much for tuning in today. You can go ahead on to On Demand on pegtv.com if you'd like to revisit this episode so you can cook along with me, and we'll put the recipe up for you as well. Thanks so much for tuning in today. Here's to happy and healthy eating. Have a great day, everybody.